Do burglars really avoid houses with dogs? 1. I worked for several years as a critical care transport medic for the Texas prison system, and I spent a lot of time in the back of an ambulance, whiling away long rides talking with my patients. Every single one said the same thing about dogs. Even the presence of a noisy little chihuahua would make them move on to a less hazardous house. And the thought of encountering a large, quiet dog was terrifying. There were plenty of other houses. I train my dogs, especially the big ones, to sit quietly behind me as I talk to visitors at the front door. Those door-to-door magazine salespeople or fundraisers for causes you've never heard of, who are really just trying to find out who's home during the day and get a peek into your house, always get a good eyeballing from my chief of security. 2. My dad was a cop, and back in the early 70s, he had a pit bull. If he was at home and someone approached the front door, the dog would let out one quiet, almost whispering bark. He'd then stand next to the door, watching, but he wouldn't make another sound. Dad always wondered what would happen if he wasn't home, and eventually, he found out. One night while Dad was at work, someone broke into the house. Thunder, the pit bull, apparently sat in the dark in complete silence, patiently waiting for the burglar to close and lock the door. He then relieved the perp of much of his clothing and a large part of his backside. Dad came home to find the living room littered with scraps of bloody fabric and the inside of the door covered in frantic, bloody handprints. The guy got out. It turned out it was a drug addict who lived down the block. He was easy to find by following the trail of blood down the sidewalk. Dad didn't have him prosecuted, although they did have an in-depth conversation about the young man's future. The guy told Dad there was no way in hell he'd have broken in if he'd known about the dog. He moved away within a week. 3. I live on the border of a rough neighborhood. I also have 5 dogs of varying sizes, large to small. One day, a thief stole something from a local store on the edge of our property. Well, the thief wasn't aware of my animals, so he sneaked around to retrieve his stolen items, only to be met by 2 of my most protective dogs. The police told me they chased said thief for over a mile. In fact, the only reason they knew who the thief was is due to my dogs chasing him. Anyhow, fast forward a year, we still aren't locking our doors or concerned about burglars. I pulled up at the local Ghetto Fab gas station across the street from the store the thief stole from. A guy noticed my van with a decal for my dog business on it. He asked if I could train his pit bull. I asked, "How did you hear about us?" "I don't train dogs, rather I bake dog treats for high-end pet stores," but he piqued my interest. He said, "Oh, I heard about your dogs chasing the guy who stole from the store." "Ah, I see. So it appears everyone in my Ghetto Fab neighborhood thinks I train animals to chase off thieves." House secured. 4. This happened to a friend twice, both with the same outcome. The friend was a breeder of Rhodesian Ridgeback dogs. When everyone in the house went out, the dogs, bar one, were put out into the garden with kennels, etc. One dog was always left in the house. The friend came home from work to find a teenager standing in her kitchen. Her first thought was he was a friend of her son. Her next thought was that there was only one dog in the house, and if her son was home, all the dogs would have been in. Also, the dog in the house hadn't rushed to